Hey everyone, Meet Kevin here. Today I want to share a bit of perspective, and I want to be as upfront as possible about this, and that this is coming from a place to also be as respectful as possible while sharing insight that I think all of us deserve. I, first of all, want to applaud ClearValue Tax for, well, his ability to engage more viewers on stimulus videos than I can, and I applaud him for that. I'm happy for him. I encourage seeing growth on YouTube because, if anything, that should serve to inspire us, not only us as creators like me on YouTube or other YouTubers, but also you, because it shows you that America and the world we're in is a world of possibility. So first, I have to come out and applaud ClearValue Tax for showing us that growth is still possible in America. And I'm so happy for him and so happy to see that inspiration. But I have to say that I am saddened by a video that he just posted probably about 40 minutes ago. Also, since it's very likely that thousands will come to this video solely to dislike the video without watching it because they saw a thumbnail or a title, for once, maybe, because I usually don't ask this, could I ask you to consider pressing the like button just to maybe offset some of that, especially if you appreciate the perspective that I'm going to share with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share 3 parts of this video. I encourage you to watch his video, and I encourage you to subscribe to his channel. You don't have to subscribe to me. You don't have to like or watch my videos, but I do, as a fellow American, encourage you to at least consider this additional insight. So I'm gonna show you 3 parts of his video, and in between each of those parts of his video, I want to share context. All right, let's get started with part number 1.
And happy Tuesday. I'm going to show you how little certain members of the government care about us. I can't make this stuff up, so I'm going to leave a link to the letter that's on the Congressional Budget Office's website giving an analysis of unemployed people. The letter says, and this is a quote, "When people become unemployed, to pay for food, housing, and other living expenses, people can draw on their savings, borrow money, sell assets such as cars or jewelry, or use funds received from other people." End quote. You know, they got the nerve to write, they have the nerve to write things like that. It's just incredible. Again, the link to the letter is down below, and thank you to the government for your analysis and your recommendation on how people can raise money for them to pay for their food, housing, and basic necessities. That's just great.
Well, so I have to start by saying that doesn't sound very good, right? But let's take a look at the letter that ClearValue Tax is referring to, and I want you to remember a couple things that he said. He started off by saying that I'm going to show you how little members of the government care about us. That doesn't sound good. That makes us feel bad. That makes us resent the government. That makes us hate the people that we elected. And maybe we're right to, because look, it's been taking long enough to get a second round of stimulus going, right? But just specifically in this, that phrase, that doesn't make us feel good. And neither does the phrase, hey, here is the government, quote, giving an analysis of unemployed people and giving recommendations on how people might be able to come up with money to survive during this time, right? Well, let's take a look at the actual letter, because this is actually a letter that I talked about when it came out on around June 5th. So we're talking about almost a month ago that this letter came out, and it's just now coming back into the discussion. And here's that letter. When we pull up the letter, oh, it's actually June 4th, so a little bit older. But anyway, when we pull up the letter, the first thing that I want you to notice is this is not an analysis on people who are on unemployment insurance. This is actually a letter from the Congressional Budget Office that is a response to Charles Grassley, who is in Congress in the Senate. He's on the Finance Committee. And the letter is actually titled Economic Effects of Additional Unemployment Benefits of $600 per Week. So this letter talks about the economic effects of the government giving us an additional $600 per week, or extending the $600 per week unemployment program that's expiring on July 31st. That's what this letter is analyzing and talking about. And this is the section that ClearValue Tax referred to. It's under the effects on consumption section. And the portion in yellow is what he read, and the portion in red and green is what he did not read. I'm going to read this, and then I want you to make your own conclusion. Effects on consumption. When people become unemployed, they generally consume fewer goods and services. To pay for food, housing, and other living expenses while unemployed, people can draw on their savings, borrow money, save assets, or rather sell assets, such as cars or jewelry, or use funds received from other people or the government. Many unemployed people have little or no savings and would face high interest rates on loans. Some people could draw on retirement savings. The CARES Act allows people affected by the pandemic to withdraw from tax-preferred retirement savings accounts without incurring a tax penalty. The additional $600 per week in unemployment benefits under current law allows people to continue to consume goods and services that they might otherwise be unable to afford and save for future contingencies. So, when we read this in context, we see that this is really nothing more than an economic analysis saying, look, when people are unemployed, they might be in a situation where they have no choice but to draw from their savings, borrow money, sell assets, or use funds from other sources to get by. This article shows that the $600 per week is another lifeline, especially since many unemployed people have little or no savings, or they face high interest rates if they go to borrow money. So the article, or this analysis, is not telling people on unemployment to go sell their stuff to survive. It's actually a letter to senators saying this is what people have to do in the worst case scenario, which is when the government doesn't help them. Instead, if the government does help with the $600, here's how it might help. It might help by helping people continue to consume goods and services. But I think it's really important for us to see that this is not a letter slamming people on unemployment, telling them to go sell their jewelry to survive. This is a letter explaining how important some form of additional unemployment stimulus actually is. The letter goes into the pros and cons, that maybe $600, maybe that's too much, but the $600 has been helping dramatically. Maybe there is a balance. Maybe it's $400, maybe it's $500. That's the implication out of the letter, right? But the letter gives pros and cons, and to simply read that one section out of context, in my opinion, is very disingenuous because it leads us to believe that our government doesn't care. And a lot of us might feel that way, and you're right to feel that way, but that out of context statement is not a fair characterization. And all it does is create more resentment, but not only just for our government, it creates more resentment for our country, and ultimately it creates more resentment for each other, and it creates more hatred amongst our society. Now, I know that some people might click on this video and go, oh, hater, and then leave the video and dislike it without watching it. To me, I view this as a plea. That is, please, ClearValue Tax, don't foster this sensationalized hate. Provide the context. That's, I thought, at least, why people like you, because you give the facts. You give the facts in a succinct manner. Not this. This isn't you. Now, ClearValue goes on to talk about loans and forbearance and evictions. Let's touch on that.
There are now 25 days left before the protections from the CARES Act stimulus package expire, allowing people to be evicted again. This is applicable. This protection was for federally backed mortgages. So properties with federally backed mortgages. So this applies to 20% of the renters, which is tens of millions of Americans. A lot of states and cities are trying to implement emergency relief measures to help the at-risk tenants, but they simply don't have the funding to do so.
Now, I want to provide more context and insight on this as well, because this is really important if you're a tenant or if you're a landlord. First things first, the FHFA has extended the eviction and foreclosure moratorium until at least August 31st. So this planned expiration has already been extended for, in this case, all single-family properties. So if you are renting a single-family property with a federally backed mortgage, there is no eviction possible until at least August 31st, and then that might get kicked back even more. Also, if you are a tenant renting in a multifamily building or an apartment or any kind of building, if your landlord is taking mortgage forbearance, you cannot get evicted during the time they take mortgage forbearance. So if your landlord is getting relief, you must get that relief continued as well. And yes, there are also state eviction moratoriums, which means California and New York have bans on evictions that are oftentimes longer than what the federal eviction bans are, and often, well, at least currently, we expect a lot of those to be extended. Beyond that, there are also links that you can go to, which I'm going to link one of them down below, Fannie Mae. It gives you all the other links as well, so it makes it easy for you. I'm going to put a link in the description down below that's going to give you the opportunity, if you're living in a multifamily building, to, let's say, put your address in, and then you can find out if the loan that backs that multifamily building is backed by a federally rated mortgage, which would give you more protections as a tenant, and the website kind of goes through some of the options you have. So not all hope is lost. If you're renting a single family, I don't know if you could use that form. You could try, but as we see here, the single family eviction ban is extended until August 31st. Anyway, so this just gives you a little bit more insight onto the eviction ban. Now, one more thing from ClearValue. Let's go ahead and play it. And by the way, for any of the links that I reference, you just have to open up the description and scroll down past the links for like my course or the coupon for the course that expires on July 4th, the life insurance, and of course, getting 2 free stocks with Webull. The links you need are below all of that. Of course, I encourage you to get 2 free stocks with Webull. Deposit $100, you get 2 free stocks worth up to $1,400. And the life insurance you can get a quote for in like 2 minutes, and you could sign up for in as little as 5 minutes. Super easy to do. I encourage you to check it out. Let's get to number 3 though.
Politicians are going on vacation after Thursday for 17 days of break, and politicians in the meanwhile are trying to pass a bill where you get a tax deduction for taking a vacation.
Now, unfortunately here, this is where ClearValue Tax takes 2 truths and merges them together as if they're related. And this is a logical fallacy that makes us believe something's happening that's not happening. It kind of makes us believe that politicians are greedy and trying to take advantage of tax loopholes to get write-offs on vacations because they're about to go on vacation. And I'm not here to say that politicians are not greedy. I'm not taking sides on any of that at all. Just looking at solely the facts, what's actually happening. So here's what's actually happening. Yes, Congress is going on a recess as of the 3rd of July. And yeah, it's fun to joke and go, hey, I didn't get to go on recess as a kid before I finished my homework. Yes, there's a lot of pressure on Congress to get more work done and pass stimulus bills before they go on their recess. But remember, these recesses are really just periods of time where senators and representatives get to go back to their district. And when representatives and senators go back to their district, they get to meet with local businesses, their community leaders, their citizens, their constituents. And that's when they can kind of get the ideas from us, or at least that's the theory, to figure out what it is that we need. And then they can go back to Congress and debate. So these recess periods, yeah, they can also be used for family time or actually reading bills and legislation. Rather than spending all day in Congress and nominating judges, they can actually, catch up on things and then come back and work. Yes, it is time away from Congress, and yes, that frustrates a lot of us because they should be there, banging out some stimulus legislation right now. It isn't exactly a vacation. And look, I'm not a shill for the government here to say, oh, you should believe everything the government does. That's not me at all. But what I am saying is, it's not fair to take the congressional recess and definitely define it as a vacation. I really think that undermines the American spirit. Then it's also not fair to put that right next to a miscellaneous proposed bill. That's just a proposed bill, it's not even passed, that would create tax credits for us as Americans to travel. Now, I know many of us don't want to travel because, well, there's a pandemic going on. That's why I don't think that bill has any chance of passing, but it hasn't passed yet anyway. So the people in Congress can't benefit from something that hasn't passed yet anyway. But beyond that, the reason that bill was introduced isn't to help people in Congress, although yeah, in theory that could potentially be a byproduct. That was introduced to help the retail and the travel industry, the airlines, the hotel industry, the real companies that are massively suffering because of this pandemic. Now look, I'm not saying that ClearValue Tax is wrong for sensationalizing his latest video. Maybe that's what the viewers want. After all, he gets more views than I do, and I applaud him for that. Maybe I'm too technical, or maybe people just want to punch me in the face, or maybe people think that, I drink too much Coca-Cola. Not sure where they would have gotten that idea. But I do think that this video ClearValue Tax made takes a sad time and makes us feel worse. And he did so in a disingenuous way by removing really crucial content or context 3 times in a 5-minute and 51-second video. In my opinion, that's not fair.